It's a primetime home opener for the Bills against the Titans. What's the atmosphere going to be like in Orchard Park? Plus, Derrick Henry's been a handful against the Bills the last few years. What should the defensive plan be? And how high is the dude factor for Josh Allen? All that's coming up on this week's edition of the Buffalo Plus podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. We are getting you ready for week 2 Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. We know this is a big game in terms of the AFC, the conference. The Titans were the number 1 seed in last year's playoffs. All right, Mike, and there's also, let's talk about this, some bad blood between these two teams. This is their 5th straight year matching up against one another. This year, though, the home opener in Buffalo. What do you make of this matchup on primetime Monday?
Yeah, well, let's start with what the atmosphere is going to be like. We were in LA to see the Rams, their home opener, celebrating a championship. And I thought in total it was a bit of a dud, because it's LA. And I remember saying to you, can you imagine if this was in Buffalo and they had won the Super Bowl, it would be like? So they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they did open up the year with a big win. These people are going to be all jacked up. I mean, it's going to be that atmosphere coming in. And you know what's good about it? I think it's good, is that the game starts at 7:15. I think they'll be plenty primed up and ready to go by 7:15. I think the only thing you're going to have to do is, as I think Diggs mentioned it, maybe keep Josh's hype down a little bit, because we know how he can be at the beginning of games, some of the big games. So, I'm really looking forward to it. Hey, we don't even know about the weather because Dan's going to be there with me, so I know it's going to be lousy weather.
Could be crappy. Yep.
Is it supposed to be? I didn't see that.
It's supposed to get rain, maybe thunderstorms.
Yep, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Faith,
Yeah.
you need to do like a cleanse or something.
Like a sage.
Yeah,
isn't that what it is?
Sage,
We need a little sage.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I should be the one apologizing that I picked this game for the home opener, knowing that it would probably be less than ideal weather. I think we all know what to expect at this point. Mike, you always used to joke around that Orchard Park is where motivation goes to die, and that is no longer the case.
Nope.
And not only for opposing teams, but it's another. You know what you're going to expect out of Bills Mafia on primetime. The difference is, and I thought this was very telling, we asked Von Miller about what are you expecting? And he's like, well, I already know what to expect. Like, I've played in Buffalo before. I know that the fans are going to be loud. They're going to be crazy. I know that. But then he finished answering that question by saying, but it's never been like this. They've never had this level of expectation, which is what we have talked about all off season, the Super Bowl favorites, all those things. So I thought it was very telling that Von's like, yeah, I know what to expect, but there's never been these type of expectations on this home opener. So I think it will be turned up to 11 or 12, just because coming off that Thursday night win, coming off the primetime, going back in, back-to-back weeks in primetime, I expect it to be an electric atmosphere, a notch above what I expected, and from what you guys were saying was in LA.
Well, this year too, I feel like the Bills over the last couple of years have gone from the underdogs to now they've gone from the hunters to being hunted. And this is yet another example. And let's be real, this Titans team is going to be super motivated after that week 1 stunning loss to the Giants. And you're right, the atmosphere, we know it's going to be insane. Some of the Buffalo area schools, Orchard Park schools, having a half day to deal with traffic getting ready for Monday.
My wife is so upset. She saw my story I did yesterday, and she's like, why is Josh talking about school getting let out early? And I explained that buses and game day traffic, they can't mix. They shut down certain roads. And she's like, that's not fair. I was like, yeah, it's only because you're the teacher that didn't get off. You're the teacher that didn't get the half day.
Yeah.
She's like, could Rochester schools that? I go, it's game day traffic. I go, this isn't just because it's a Bills game. It's not like, oh, Monday, guys, take half the day.
By the way, is it just Orchard Park?
No, I think there was another school though.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah,
Josh said that's how you make some
build up some fan base. Absolutely, for the game. Yeah.
No, but yes, we know it's going to be an intense atmosphere. But like you said, Dan, the expectations, and Von Miller was the one that said it first. That is what changes how this team will be viewed this year and the expectations around what the games will look like. But Mike, I mean, these two teams know each other. I mean, the Titans look very different though this year, but let's be real, it's still Derrick Henry.
It is. I don't like this Titans team. I liked him more last year than a lot of people did. And I remember thinking, I don't know why everybody thinks they're going to walk into Nashville and win, because I figured the Titans had Harold Landry. They had A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And they were the up-and-coming team. They were a good team who ended up with a 1 seed. And I talked to John Burton. You can see that interview here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Yeah, John was great. And he said, that loss in the playoffs took a lot out of this team. It's motivating for them coming back, but it also was a little debilitating. And then you take, Landry gets hurt. You take A.J. Brown off. Treylon Burks may end up being a really good player. He's not A.J. Brown at the moment. So it sort of has taken a step back. And they lost to the Giants, and they're a better team than the Giants. But I didn't think it was some monumental upset. Maybe I'll be convinced differently. Maybe because Vrabel can get them to play a physical brand of football, and maybe that's what they'll do, and they'll play that way against the Bills. But honestly, I see this as a mismatch. It's a mismatch of a game. The Bills are better. They're a much better quarterback.
Yeah.
And I know the Titans will be fired up. That's great. Get fired up. I just don't see them staying in this game with the Bills.
I think about that all the time. We're like, these guys will bounce back. It's like 16 teams every week lose, and they don't all win the next week. Like this thought of like, but Mike's right. Talent-wise, this Titans team is not what it was last year, and they are nowhere near Buffalo. So that's why I agree with Mike. I think this is a mismatch. They're 9.5-point favorites. It's the most they've been favored in a home opener since 1993, when they were 14-point favorites over the Patriots. So this is one of those games where I look at it and everybody's like, oh, they're going to come out angry. It's like, that's what you tell yourself when you really don't fear a team that much.
No, I think two things can be true. One can be true that the Bills are the far more superiorly talented team. And two, the Titans were embarrassed to their loss against the Giants, and they're going to play better. Like, I think that's not crazy to say that.
No.
Now, the Titans better is not as good as the Bills better. Right. But at the same point, I think you're going to see a more disciplined team. I think that week 1 loss for the Titans was something where they went, oh shit, we actually have to play. And you're right. We can't go to the A.J. Browns. He doesn't exist anymore. He's not on this team. So I think two things can be true. It's not just the one that.
How about Jenna going all Stefon Diggs there?
No, I just feel like that's such a
No, I think it's
lazy
so clean.
Take.
No, I think it's a lazy take to say, oh, they'll bounce back because they're a tough team.
No,
she didn't
I'm not
say they're
going to win. I'm saying they're going to play better than they played in week 1.
I think they can play worse. I think they can be challenged. I think they can be challenged more and look even more anemic and lackluster and no effort against a team that could take their heart away in that kind of atmosphere in the second quarter. The Giants aren't a good team. Brian Daboll's a hell of a coach, but the Giants aren't a good team. And they went into Nashville and did that. So,
well, not only did they do it, but the Titans fell apart in the second half, gave up big plays, and then lost on that field goal. I will say this. Vrabel is a get him fired up guy. He gets them to play hard. I do think losses in the NFL get teams' attention more than wins. They do. It doesn't mean they always come back and win, but I think everybody's got to be a little more maybe attentive. And I don't want to read too much into the first game. I'm just looking at them going, I don't love this team. I hate the division. What'd you say, Dan? Was it you or Jenna said?
They're winless division, and 2 of the teams played each other.
I know.
Unbelievable.
It's a lousy division. So, I mean, not that we don't know what the AFC East is going to be, but I mean, you have the Bills, and then the Dolphins look good, and then we'll see. But no, I think they'll they'll play with I don't think it's not like they've quit. It's one game in. They had a bad ending. They still should have stolen the game, but I think it gets your attention. But we'll see how much that helps them against the Bills.
And Mike, it's interesting you talked about when you talked to John Burton about that playoff loss, because I loved Tennessee in that game. I loved them. Also, Uncle Dan's Best Bets videos comes out on Friday, 6-3 week 1. No big deal. Just saying. I remember, and that front seven of Tennessee, that was what I betted on. I was like, I had Tennessee every single possible way. First quarter, first half, game, money line, adjusted line, because I was like, that front seven is going to abuse the Bengals' poor offensive line. I didn't see that vicious front seven that we saw last year against the Giants. And the Giants don't have this all-pro offensive line. So that was where, when you look at you look at this year's roster, I just didn't see that. Now, like I said, Jeffrey Simmons is still an issue.
Oh, he's an issue.
But no Landry, not really concerned.
All right.
Were you taking notes there, Jenna?
No, I'm tweeting. It's a fiery edition of the Buffalo Plus podcast. Y'all blame Dan Fates. We'll be dropping a new episode tonight.
Retweet that.
Yeah. No, here's my thing. Okay, you're right. Again, the Bills are the more talented team, all of those things. But let's talk about Derrick Henry, because we know what he is. Von Miller even talked about he's Von Miller size running the ball. And that has been a guy that has been the thorn in the Bills' side. So, Mike, your take on Derrick Henry and how the Bills can stop him.
Yeah, I think you can add more to the front seven, or the front six, as we like to say with them, what they do, because I'm not afraid of the Titans passing game. I'm just not. Hey, look, they couldn't cover A.J. Brown last year, and he hurt them. He couldn't do that. But they don't have to worry about him. And I think if I'm the Bills, I'm saying, okay, Ryan Tannehill, you beat us with your arm, and I'm going to get it. Hey, look, if you do to Henry what the Giants did to him, what was it, 80 some odd yards, 20 carries? It was like 4 yards a carry. Like, that's a good week for most backs. They'd take that. For Derrick Henry, you're like, man, you just held Steph Curry to 20 points. I mean, that's what you did. So he is that guy. He can wreck a game for you. I just think the Bills defense will game plan for him. Mm-hmm. And as good as he is, in order for him to succeed, he's going to need more out of the quarterback. He's going to need more out of the offense. I just don't see that in the Titans. I don't see that ability to hurt the Bills.
I think John Burton had a great thing. He said, if I'm Leslie Frazier or if I'm defensive coordinators around the league, you game plan out Derrick Henry, you know what you need to do, and you make the different parts of the Titans offense beat you.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. It's obviously easier said than done to, alleviate Derrick Henry, but at the same point, Dan, that to me, it's that makes sense.
Yeah, you can kind of sell out in a sense. And one thing I think that's also telling here, and I know it doesn't always apply to every game, but Derrick Henry usually starts playing better as the season wears on. Defenses are more banged up and beat up. I think the Bills defense having the extra time off is even more, because I think Chris Long was talking about it on his Greenlight podcast, that you're never more sore than after week 1, because it's just you haven't been through the collision since the end of last season, and your body kind of gets used to it. So I think it's a huge advantage to have the 3 extra days. I think Warren Sharp had a stat that said teams that played in that Thursday night game since 2011 are 16-2 straight up and against the number on week 2. So I think it's a huge advantage. I think this is a game where you might see a little bit more Terrell Dodson if he fills in for more. If they want to go, Mike, like you said, adding to that front 6, I think it puts a lot of pressure on Poyer and Hyde to come up and make plays. I think the rookie corners are going to have to come up and make plays. Try not to get stiff-armed into infamy. I think all of those are it. But it was funny listening to Von talk about how him and Derrick Henry, same size, same weight. His 40 was faster, but said Derrick's vertical was better. And he said that he always watches him because he always thought he could play offense. And so it's nice to see somebody like him doing it at that level.
2 things. Von Miller also dropped that one day he wants to be a GM, which I thought was interesting. But also, we got to interview Von on a one-on-one. Dan and I did, and Von Miller is not the tallest defensive lineman, obviously Greg Rousseau, and he doesn't seem like the most muscular, but like standing next to a regular human being, Dan, it was comical.
Can I say what I said in the card, Jenna?
No.
Okay. He looks comically large. Like he has muscle. Jenna goes, "What are those shoulder muscles?" I go, "I don't know. I don't have them." Like there's muscles that come out of here.
Yeah, I don't know
this area, and it just is unbelievable. Very, again, deep, thoughtful answers. I asked him a question about when you come to Buffalo. I know it's just week 1, but he's big on visualization. What is it? Was what week 1 was what you envisioned? And he kind of went into this big, deep 3-minute answer to my one question about how you always think about success, but like doesn't always happen. But like when you come to Buffalo, you thought like this front four could do that kind of damage. And it was impressive. And I don't think the Bills have had that against Tennessee the last 4 years.
Yeah. Mike, your thoughts?
They haven't. No, they haven't had that. And I think this Bills team, I was telling somebody the other day, they were just so impressed by what they saw and what they heard from the Bills. And I said, sometimes it is lip service. Like it's 1 of 17. It's 1 of 17. These guys buy into that. They absolutely buy into it. And I don't see them as they've never, been a letdown team. That Jacksonville game is such an aberration to what they've been. They don't lose to bad teams. They might have bad starts. They might have to play tougher against a team that you thought they'd handle. But they usually don't come out flat and bad unless there was some other circumstances. And, sometimes with a team, you come off that win like that Rams win. It's like, hello, world, here we are. Well, I think the Bills had already shown the world who they are, and they just proved it again in that first game. And being home for this game, I think, it also helps with that. The attention to detail is going to be there. And Dan's point about the extra days helps them too. So, and for Von Miller, it's his home opener, all those kind of things that go with it. And Josh just embraces, we talked about it, he embraces these moments. So they're in good shape coming into this.
Only thing, the status of Ed Oliver, uncertain. Tim Settle, again, he also missed practice on Wednesday. We're recording this podcast on Thursday morning. So those guys' decision, that's going to want to have some big bodies up there. Yep. 2 defensive tackles banged up isn't great. Obviously, Jordan Phillips played outstanding. And I think we're starting to realize how good Daquan Jones is for a guy that we really haven't talked about on this podcast at all.
Yeah. It's funny, just because there's so many loud personalities on that line that I feel like he's just the softer spoken. I don't even know how to describe. Like he's just not running around and screaming all the time.
Mike, you talked about how, this team buys into this one, it's just 1 of 17. Yeah. I asked Sean McDermott on Wednesday if being a defensive guy, we get so caught up in Josh Allen and the offense and all of those things. I asked him, like, the way that your front four performed on Thursday, is that what you envisioned when you thought about bringing in a guy like Von Miller? Like if we brought in Von, we wouldn't have to send more pressure. We would be able to get home. And he was like, the front four, every Super Bowl caliber team has a dominant front four. And it was like, whoa, that's saying a lot for Sean, in my opinion, because normally he's like, it's one game. He goes, well, it's one game, but like, that is one characteristic that are on a lot of championship teams, Von being one of them, Sean McDermott being a part of defenses that have gone to championships and Super Bowls.
Yeah, I do think that's it. And schematically, it's impactful because you don't have to send the pressure. And Leslie was laughing about it this week and, about the guys joking with him about it. But when you don't have to do that, just simple numbers. You've got 7 players more in coverage or back behind the line of scrimmage. And it is also a psychological thing, too. If you're the Titans this week, you're game planning for Von Miller, and this D-line is a handful. And Ryan Tannehill's got to be aware. Like, I think he saw what happened with Stafford, and it's a little different when you're throwing to a rookie, in Treylon Burks, as opposed to AJ Brown, in terms of saying, let me get the ball out, let me make a play, give me some time here, I'm going to get it down the field like he did last year. So it just makes the game much different. It just does. And Kyle Phillips, again, he's that guy. It's so funny. He's the stereotypical guy, possession receiver,
New England.
He's that guy. He's that guy. Who's he get compared to? Who's he get compared to? Cole Beasley, Walker,
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah. He's that guy. You know what I'm saying? He's that guy. So
that guy.
He's somebody to watch to get rid of the ball, but you got Taron Johnson in the slot. So, it's good luck with that.
We were at the press conference yesterday, and I was like, has anyone asked about Kyle Phillips to Matt Beauvais of Channel 7 in Buffalo? And he's like, who are you talking about? And I was like, no, like he's a rookie slot guy. He had a bunch of targets in week 1.
Yeah. Caught 6 balls. Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked
leading
Micah,
receiver.
asked Mike, and he's like, yeah, he's a weapon. And then, he went into we got to be on our P's and Q's, all that. But it was just funny because I think.
Did you think Micah knew who he was?
No.
I felt like he did, but I don't know. I mean, I would hope so. They were looking at the film.
Well, they were looking at tape, so I don't know how much.
He may be like number 18 or something like that. Like he may not know Kyle Phillips, but he would be like, oh yeah, 14. Yeah. He's good. He's a weapon.
Yeah.
He's a weapon.
He's a weapon.
By the way, so we had Ozzy Osbourne last week in LA at halftime.
That reminds
me.
Go ahead. So you talked about the kind of a dud for like Rams fans.
Yeah.
The game itself, from the NFL production standpoint of like pregame, the ceremonies, The Rock being there, halftime show, that to me felt like a Super Bowl. Like that to me, the fanfare of it felt like a Super Bowl.
It did. Yes, it had a lot of that. And it also had a dud of a crowd, which is like a Super Bowl.
I don't like the Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, so it did, because the crowds, LA is like a Super Bowl. It's just people with a lot of money and not the most passionate fans, which a lot of times you get at a Super Bowl.
Do you remember when we were in Miami and the Chiefs beat the 49ers and the game had just ended, and the Chiefs had that great fourth quarter, and it was like, woo, in the crowd. Like I was just like looking around like.
Yeah, you were expecting to see people literally crying when their team won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because I thought
it's not what you saw.
In Western New York, it would be tears, and it was like woo.
Yeah.
It was zero.
It was very different in that way. So we'll see. What I meant was halftime, maybe McDermott, Vrabel, center of the field, 1-on-1, little wrestling, maybe MMA.
Yeah. Did not ask McDermott that.
Yeah. Well, we asked him about it before.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if Vrabel gets asked about it. I didn't hear if Vrabel got asked about it, but you got to bring Dan Campbell in from, I don't know where Detroit's playing this week, because it's a 2-on-1 match. McDermott said he could take them both at the same time. So we'll see. I wonder if they've talked about it at all, a text or anything. Do you think so? Come on, he's your golfing buddy. You think Sean texted him and said, I was only kidding? Or maybe he just assumes that Vrabel would know he was kidding.
I mean, he definitely knew he was kidding, obviously. Yeah, I feel like Sean was like, because he sees both coaches this year, so
yeah. By the way,
he's like, I'm totally kidding, playing into that.
You mentioned Super Bowls, Mike Vrabel, Sean McDermott, Eagles, Patriots in Jacksonville. I'm there with my dad watching the game, and who catches a touchdown on a tight end call, but he was playing the position down at the goal line, but Mike Vrabel against Sean McDermott's Eagles defense in the Super Bowl. How about that? Probably should have asked him about that. Get back at Vrabel for that, and for beating him the last 2 years.
Let's talk about, we didn't really discuss this all that much, but Ken Dorsey, first time calling the plays, all that stuff. I mean, obviously this is a very results-driven decision in terms of what we thought, a reaction, I should say. But Mike, what did you make of that? Because we've talked so much about him being a new piece in terms of offensive coordinator. He's obviously been around the team, but what was your impression of week one in terms of that?
Wasn't surprised at all. He's a smart guy. He's been around. He's been around Josh. He's very different personality than Dable, but honestly, he called a game that had Brian Dable's fingerprints all over it. It was very similar. He'll do things a little differently. I love that he basically said, yeah, we didn't call that many run plays for Josh, and Josh ran. As people are like, why are they calling this? Well, Josh can hand the ball off to the back, too. One of you guys said it. The coaches have said it. Like, basically, once the ball's in Josh's hands, it's his call. But the play calling was excellent. The early, play action to get the ball to Gabe was outstanding. And most impressed, I think I was hearing the players say that at halftime he came in and calmed everybody down and said, we'll be fine, to take ownership there of what was going on. They had the few turnovers. And then the second half, it just was they toyed with the Rams. So not stunned. It's not a new guy. It's just in a new role. But it looked like the Bills' offense to me.
Yeah, and I think Josh deserves a lot of that credit too. I'm not trying to sit here and Jenna's going to be like, you're not giving any credit to Ken Dorsey. No, he was good. It also helps that Josh was quick, decisive, comfortable, all of those things. As I always say, we're so critical of play callers based on the result, that if it's a good play, if the result's a good play, it's a great play call. But if it's a bad play, it's a terrible play call. It's like, or the player made a bad read. Like that it's also too, because that's the point where Mike was talking about. Sean McDermott and Ken Dorsey can say they don't want Josh Allen taking unnecessary hits, but once the ball is snapped, Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen. Yeah. He's going to take off and think he's invincible and stiff arm somebody and then get, tackled and laugh, apparently, coming back to the huddle from his teammates. So I think Ken Dorsey passed with flying colors in his debut, because I said he was the one guy that needed to get off to a good start, because you didn't want to have any of those rumblings of, is Ken Dorsey the guy? He has put that far away.
Hey, Dan. I agree with you. I don't always pick a fight. Like if I disagree with you, I disagree with you, but I actually agree with you. Again, it is a very results-driven league. Ken Dorsey did a great job. I think it was important for them to get some confidence going. It looked like a Brian Dable game, and I mean that in a complimentary way. So we'll see in week 2.
Yeah,
and they did face some adversity with the turnovers. I think that is telling, because right. I think that, like, there are times when Dorsey or Dable could just close his eyes and point at a play, and Josh Allen's on one of those levels, where it's like everything works. Like, you're just pressing all the right buttons. What does it matter? It was telling that the Cook fumble, the play to McKenzie, that it's the fluke interception. And for them to bounce back and kind of overcome those, I think is a good sign for a team that knows adversity comes in games and over the season, and you can overcome it.
I think the best sign was the calmness that Ken Dorsey had at the half, and Stephon Diggs talked about that, because he even pointed it out when he said, it's not what they're doing, it's what we are doing. And that's 100% true. But to have, there's a lot of buildup in that game. The results weren't there yet. It would be easy to kind of fall into a panicked position and be like, okay, we need to throw everything out there. We need to change completely our game plan. But they stuck with what worked. Ken Dorsey did that. Josh Allen did that. And I think the results do speak for themselves. But I think that's, again, you are going to face adversity. It is a long season. But to have that first test and be able to be like, you know what, we stuck to what we did great, and we were able to be disciplined enough to do that, I think says a lot.
And it is a week-to-week league. It's the first time I've said it this year. But
look at last year.
look at last year going into the season. Everything going their way. All set up. They've got all their guys. They had played a little in the preseason. Josh looked great, and they came out. Again, continuity, Dable, all the coaches, everybody's back, and the offense looked horrendous in that first game against Pittsburgh. It was a bad matchup. The Steelers defense played great, and they physically beat the Bills up in that game. And then they didn't play even great the second game, and then they got it going. So, there will be an evolution. And he said that at the beginning. Dorsey said, I tried to ask him, is the first week that much different than the other weeks? And he really didn't go down that line. I was saying because you don't really know what the other team's going to do. He basically said, it's every week is so different. It's all about matchups. It's about health. It's about all those different things that play into it. So this matchup defensively may be a little different for the Bills. We'll see what they decide to do. I'm expecting somebody like Dawson Knox to get fed the ball a little bit. Yeah. I could see that becoming a thing. He didn't really get that many opportunities, but he's going to be a weapon for them against his hometown team, the Titans. But that's week to week. That depends on what the defense has. I just meant more of, the Rams had their whole offseason to come up with something for Josh Allen in the first game, and they didn't show anything, and then you play the game. So in this case, for the Bills, they've played the Titans the last 2 years. I think these teams know each other pretty well. I think it'll be less of a surprise, but everybody puts something in the week of the game.
I just want to bring up something about hearing the players talk about Josh this week and his performance in LA. They all kind of said, Stephon Diggs said after the game, he's got that dog in him. And then Jordan Poyer was on Pat McAfee and said, he's a dog. And I love listening to Trent Dilfer. He goes on the Ryan Russillo podcast. I love Trent, the fact that he says he's the one that had the butcher or the surgeon analogy. He's also the first person to say he's maybe the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, and that he's not good, but he says he looks at some of these things, and Ryan Fitzpatrick talked about it too on Pardon My Take, and they both said that Josh Allen is a dude. And he said that, like, Dilfer says one of the big things that you need to know about a quarterback are his DQs, and he called those dude qualities. Like, do you connect with people? Like, do people buy in? Do players believe you? Do they trust you? All of those things. Like, can you be that unifying factor in a locker room? And he goes, and Fitzpatrick was talking about it and saying, like, Josh is the coolest guy in that locker room, but he can hang out with everybody. And the fact that, he doesn't have a separate locker and he doesn't have a separate shower. Like, he's a dude. And I think that's one of the biggest compliments you can have for a teammate and a quarterback.
Yeah. And I find dude quality. I find it to be very similar to Russell Wilson, who just seems like an everyman, doesn't he?
Totally.
I mean, the tuxedo coming in,
I wish when at the moment I saw that tuxedo, I could have changed my pick of who won that game.
Yeah.
I saw the tuxedo and I was like, oh man.
Oh my God.
No way. He put that tuxedo back on too after a loss.
So
That's a tough look.
Does he say no ride or let's ride? Because that game was, I'm just saying about being a guy, especially coming to a new team.
Yeah.
Well, you're coming to a new team in that way. And I was telling somebody earlier today that you can't take that for granted with Josh Allen, not just because the fans love him and all. I remember Steve Tasker telling me for years about what that locker room is like. And he goes, if it's out there, it's talked about. It's guys have a bad haircut, everybody's on them. Guy wears weird clothes, they're on them. Guy listens to music, they're on them. That locker room is real all the time. You won't make it halfway across the room. So it's hard to be fake in that room. And if you are fake, everybody knows you're fake and they just think you're fake in whatever phrase they'll use for it. And Allen appears to navigate that because, he can walk into all those little pockets of players and he's the guy, handshakes and the whole thing. And that part plays well, especially in an NFL locker room, which is 53 different men is just the way it is.
And that was something Dilfer said was that, like, to have those qualities and to go through it. He's like, you just have to be a quarterback. Like, you just have to go through it and all those things. And he goes, how do you handle when your defensive coordinator says something stupid? How do you handle it when the team doesn't believe in your head coach? What do you do when there's a social issue that's going on in the world? How do you handle it? You have to be the unifier after a blowout win and a blowout loss. Like, you have to be the guy. And so it's just one of those things when they were talking about just quarterbacks in general, like Joe Burrow, like he's a dude. Like, even though he throws 5 interceptions, you still trust him to be that guy to make a throw at the end of the game.
MVP, not Burrow. Oh,
Okay. I have a
Michael?
little hot take here. I believe Aaron Judge watches Josh Allen press conferences. Aaron Judge
Why?
is a lot like Josh in the way he answers questions. I think there's a lot of similarities. I was listening to him.
That's how,
What's that?
that's how like Josh starts every.
Yeah. Deflect, deflect, deflect. But also the guy. Like Aaron Judge is a monster. He is having one of the greatest seasons ever. The team hasn't done what they need to do, but you can tell. Imagine what a baseball clubhouse is like with all the different personalities. And Judge, he's not the outgoing guy that Josh appears to be, but in terms of that kind of guy, that's not, and he's doing it in New York City, trying to navigate that, handling everything that goes along. When's the contract coming and all? And the reason I say that, I'm listening like we listen to guys doing interviews. I'm trying to come up with a soundbite from Aaron Judge, like with Josh Allen. It's very difficult. He talks, he's cordial, he's respectful, says nothing, says absolutely nothing in those cases. So I'm listening to him, and I what I say to you before, basketball wise, I always thought he was like Giannis, or even Embiid. He's probably more like an Embiid kind of guy, physically just a marvel. But now I'm bringing him with Aaron Judge, and by the way, they're about the same size too, aren't they? It would seem to be pretty close in that way. But navigating that room as the star is a skill, and I think Josh does it, and I don't know if that'll ever change, but I think he does it as well as anybody. What did I say?
No, I'm only laughing because a lot of my close girlfriends are really short, so sometimes I feel like the Aaron Judge, Jose Altuve picture standing next to my friends because I'm 5'9". And
they're Altuve and you're Aaron Judge. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Sorry, it just sparked my memory. That's really interesting because I wouldn't equate them just because Josh is so much more outwardly outgoing.
Yeah, that's the part that I find is a little different. And I don't know, maybe Judge hides whatever. We obviously see Josh Allen in different circumstances, and we've seen his social media stuff and all. But I meant it more like being the star, being the recognizable guy, and just navigating that. No issues, respected by coaches, managers, other players, other teams. Like that's quite a thing to have, and the Bills have that guy.
Yeah. His personality reminds me of the outward personality of Tom Brady now in Tampa.
Tampa Tom.
Because obviously with the Patriots, he was a lot more buttoned up. But I feel like the quips and...
Well, maybe...
Dan doesn't... Dan disagrees with me.
Josh is so likable. And I think even though Tom has become more likable, I don't think he's on Josh's
level. Tom built up 20 years of people despising him and the Patriots. So he's coming from a place of that.
Yeah.
And wait till he's single, Tom. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That was too soon.
That's not nice. I feel... yeah. Well, Giselle tweeted, "Let's go at Tom Brady."
Look at that. Let's go. Donnie.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe the one ring he won't keep.
Wait a minute. That was really harsh.
I don't know. That just came to my head. I don't mean it.
Tweet that.
No, I'm not. No. All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Kids?
No. Kids?
We always joke because Mike says that whenever Dan and I are sitting in the same room and Mike walks in, he'll say, "Hello, kids."
Yes, respectfully.
Our show tonight, if you're watching on Thursday when this comes out, Buffalo Plus Live, 7:00, right back here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Want to hear your comments.
We want the comments.
Comment, subscribe.
Yeah, you didn't say it at the beginning.
You didn't say it in the beginning, I didn't stop it. And I didn't stop it
either. Yeah.
Did you remember, Mike?
I remembered. I was listening, and I was saying, "Do I stop her?" I'm like, you know what? She's on a roll. Let her go.
Wow. Like, comment, subscribe. I said it now. But also like, comment, subscribe. We've grown
Yeah, well,
quite
on the
a bit.
show, we'll be picking the game,
Yeah.
talking about the matchups. But it's
Arguing.
really your show. It really is our viewers' show because the comments are a huge part of it. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we always do. All right, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We always appreciate the feedback. Join us every week at 7:00 on Thursdays on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. We will see you next time on Buffalo Plus. For Mike and Dan, I am Jenna. Thanks for joining us on the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris.